Major Woodall is the president of the Georgia NAACP. He made the Georgia Democrat shortlist to fill the late John Lewis's congressional seat, and he joins us now to discuss Congressman Lewis and the future of Georgia's Democratic Party. Thank you so much for being with us. We so appreciate your perspective. As you know, Congressman Lewis represented Georgia's 5th District from 1987 up to his death. Explain to our audience the impact on the state of Georgia, his tremendous, his loss that we are all feeling all across this country. But I want to get the perspective of Georgians.
Most definitely. And thank you for having me on this morning. Congressman Lewis, to so many of us here in the congressional district, and really just all over the state of Georgia and really all over the nation. He gave us a kind of perspective that really ushered in a generation of freedom fighters, of people who are committed to justice, of people who are unwilling to compromise with systems of oppression, but rather to raise voices and declare what is right, and to do everything in our power to ensure that people's lives can be saved. That's what he meant to us. And quite frankly, he also meant that we were able to enjoy this life. He would often always be laughing and smiling, but most importantly, always dancing. And so we always enjoyed his presence wherever he was.
Time Magazine just revealed its cover that's going to be released on Friday. It shows John Lewis at the age of 23 in 1963. We just heard Michelle Miller's story, and we heard from a young councilman who said that he was inspired to get into politics because of John Lewis. I want to ask you personally about what inspiration you took from John Lewis, what sort of impact he had on you.
Well, Congressman Lewis had an impact that he was, a man of many words. And me being the youngest state president in the history of the civil rights organization that I lead, the NAACP, he started, at 23. Well, he started way before 23. But at 23, he was at the March on Washington. And he was a leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, of which I did extensive research in during my college years. And just seeing how he navigated community, and he was intentional about serving his people, regardless of if it was convenient to political parties or, factions of activists within the city. He simply did what he thought to be necessary and to be right. Even him running for Congress, that's one of the storied franchises of Atlanta history. And how he had a good relationship with Julian Bond, but he ran against him anyway. And so, looking at how bold he was and courageous he was, really signals to me as a 26-year-old leader now that you don't have to wait till you are 30, 40, 50 years old to do what is right. You can do it right where you are right now.
So you were one of the top 5 finalists in consideration for Congressman Lewis's seat. What is needed from this next representative for this district? What needs to be done? What are the things that you're looking at right now? Obviously, I guess top of the list is the pandemic and the movement to address injustice and police brutality. But beyond that?
Well, beyond that, there are 3 very specific things that I will be looking for our next congressperson to do from the 5th District. One is healthcare. We're in a pandemic, yes, but we also need to see how Medicaid can be expanded. But here in the state of Georgia, we have not even experienced what that would look like. 2 is we know Congressman Lewis was a huge proponent of the Green New Deal. So being able to create new jobs through the economy, through the green environment, so that we can not only protect people's lives and their breath and their health, but also to be able to provide for their families. And then finally, we're looking at how can you engage community? Congressman Lewis was always in community. He was always shaking hands. He was always dancing with people. He was always just showing up. And so that person has to be in the community, has to be willing and able to communicate with our people about the needs of our community, but most importantly, to show up to vote. He was his very first priority was making sure that the access to the ballot box was paramount. And so being able to support the National Voting Rights Act, the National Voter Restoration Act, to be able to enfranchise so many voters and so many Americans.
Before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about what the NAACP in Georgia has been doing, because Vlad brought up the police abuse issue and the protest demanding racial equality. Georgia has found itself in the middle of one of the epicenters with the Ahmaud Arbery case, and sometimes people kind of aren't aware of the work that the NAACP does behind the scenes. What is the organization doing in light of the Ahmaud Arbery case and other injustices that we've seen in Georgia?
So Ahmaud Arbery, for sure, we're still working with that family to ensure that there's a repeal of the citizen's arrest statute here in the state, which has been invoked way too often to be able to justify the kind of violent murders that we continue to see that have racial animus to it. We're still, advocating on behalf of Marcus Wilson, who was a young man in Statesboro, Georgia, who invoked Stand Your Ground because he was literally hunted down. And if he did not defend himself, he would be the one that's dead. But instead, we have the death of Miss Haley Hutchison. And so we're advocating for that and advocating for a revision of the Stand Your Ground rule here in the state. We're also looking at other murders like Kobe Edwards, who was killed by a police officer here in Cuthbert, Georgia. And so we're looking at policy that addresses how we engage this moment of oppression. And so it's not enough to suggest that we just need to reform police, because this is not a black versus blue issue. This is an issue of dehumanization, where people are continuing to be put in harm's way. And so we're working with the legislature, we're working with the governor and the lieutenant governor and the local county commissions and local jurisdictions to be able to address this spot on. Our message is simple. We're not willing to compromise nor take opportunities for symbolic solidarity. We're going at the heart of these issues, and we're looking at statutes, not statues, so that we can save people's lives. We don't want to be able to have to keep going back to families and mourning their loss. We want to save people's lives head on first.
Statutes, not statues. I like that a lot. Reverend Major Woodall, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Take care.